we're here today to talk about real estate.
Hello and welcome back to the Real Estate Unlimited podcast. My name's Sierra Steinmetz.
Bryan Schube.
Kari Steele.
Bill Jones.
And we're the Jones Home Team.
And this is now episode 46. I keep saying it every week, probably till we get there. We're getting close to a year, so early congrats, I guess, everybody. This week, we're getting into Kari has a land contract. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of that, land contract or lease options. There's a million things you can call that. Is that a good way to buy a property? I'm sure we'll have some pros and cons with that. Shube's getting into pre-listing inspection. Should you do one or not before you list your home? Sierra's are three of her innovators. This one's AI, right? Mm-hmm. That'll be cool. So I haven't read into that one then yet. And then the thing that's supposed to put us all out of business, OpenDoor, iBuyers, all those sell your home without an agent, sell it for cash right now. Are they still around? Are they not? I don't know. Have you guys heard of them in a minute?
I haven't heard of them in a while.
Right. So we'll get in a couple things with that then too. We'll kick it off. Who wants to start? Any volunteers?
Yeah, I'll go.
Perfect. You're up.
Get it out of the way.
All right. Get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way.
This sounds interesting. Let's get it the hell out of the way. All right, Kari, what is a land contract?
Well, land contract is when you're financing it through the seller instead of going to a traditional bank or lender or paying with cash. The buyer then makes installments to the seller. So the seller is essentially financing that for you.
Seller becomes a bank, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
There's pros and cons with it. In fact, I have 2 or 3 situations where a land contract was both good and bad idea. One was a neighbor of ours. They had the house. They were getting close to paying it off, and then the sellers decided they were going to sell it. And then those people were out all that money. And I'm like,
man.
oh. And I don't think they had the kind of money to go to court, or if they did go to court, I can't remember how that. But they were 2 very hardworking people, and they got that ripped out from under. Another was super personal.
That's why you get a very large down payment.
Yeah. That the other one was some very close family members of mine. They did land contract through other family members.
Sure.
That family member refinanced while they were buying the house.
Yeah.
So what do you think that did? I mean, they agreed on a price. They were buying it. They were making the installments. And then all of a sudden the seller refinanced and took that cash and ran. And then now they're left with that new debt. And it's like, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not how that's supposed to work. And then on a positive note, somebody that I know sold a very inexpensive house. So it was like, I don't know, maybe they put $1,000 down and then they paid it off. And the last payment was made like last month or a couple months ago. And now they're able to sell it, make more, and then they're giving that money back to that client or that, I don't know if it was family or friend or whatever it was, but then they're both going to win because they're going to get some money. And then the person who bought it on land contract is going to get a house and
with that,
money.
yeah.
Nice.
I think that's a hard thing for everybody to wrap their head around. They hear that, the pros and cons, but there's no one way. Like Schube, you and I just kind of dealt with one where it was a guy buying from a land contract and then subsequently selling the property while that was still in place. So that was a weird circumstance. Stuff like that comes up.
Going back to that, so there's Ohio revised code on those things. So it's important to know what the heck you're doing when you're doing it. Regardless of what state you're in, because every state will have their own and kind of rules and regulations. But
so Ohio Revised Code Section 5313, right?
Yes, Ohio Revised
looking
Code
at your notes.
Section 5313.
I don't know if I've read all that.
I was going to say that'd be something I'd probably recommend having an attorney draw.
Yeah.
I wouldn't try drawing one up or anything like that. So even just, as far as a real estate side, I probably wouldn't mess with it. And then on a personal side, I probably also wouldn't even attempt to try to register something like that up.
Yeah.
Same. If you do any kind of land contract, it has to be recorded on the recorder's office within 20 days of signing. So that's
which I know for
too.
sure that doesn't happen
Ever.
a lot. Yeah.
Seller finance, we talked about. Buyer gains possession. So the seller still retains legal title. So even if you make a $50,000 down payment, you don't get the title.
In some instances, there are instances where the buyer usually likes, right? Correct, Bill?
Yeah, they'll take
the
title.
buyer
it'll
wants
transfer
title
right away
to them. Yeah,
Oh,
which
I
then means that the seller would
lose
my
rights.
understanding would be the seller would have to then foreclose I mean, because it's all part of the deal then. So you make your contract out. You do transfer title, which if you have a loan, could probably trigger an escalation clause or some type of do now clause.
I was going to say, we just ran into one of those as well where the seller had a loan on it and we did a land contract and we had to tell the buyer, hey, look, don't, record this because we don't want it to, do an escalation clause. And the seller's like, gets a letter, hey, we need an immediate payment for $150,000 or whatever it is.
The bank needs settled today. Yeah,
and hopefully the house, if they really want it, is worth enough that they can get that.
Yep.
Right.
But the foreclosure thing. So the seller would have to foreclose on it in order to regain that title.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It just seems like a cluster. Like, just call a realtor. Just go buy a house.
Right.
Especially if you have that much money to put down.
Well, sometimes that's where sometimes it's credit, sometimes it's life, where it does make sense, or they have to do it that way. But I guess a lot of times if you've got the money and the credit, there's no reason to not.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of those are like someone is having issues with their credit or with the down payment or something like that is typically when you see that.
Or they've already been living there and it just makes more sense to try to buy it from them.
We've been renting the place for 10 years. Can we figure this out?
I know the one we just did was more of an investment. It worked out better investment wise, but I don't know, it seems like a lot more somebody's having some issues with their credit or with their down payment or something like that, or where it makes more sense.
And we get those letters too, or we get them from sellers where it's someone writing a letter. There must be some algorithm somewhere to where these investors get a list. Okay, this person has a $100,000 mortgage at 2.9%, and then they want to buy basically that then. So they try to utilize that, pay a little bit of difference on top of it. But that all gets hairy too. It just looks like the devil's in the details with the paperwork. Like the one you said, Kari, just that reference that you had there, that I don't know what their paperwork said, but obviously somebody missed something or didn't enforce something. You shouldn't just get screwed out of.
Yeah, you can't really do a handshake and a personal check for something like a land contract. You definitely want to know.
I was going to say, I wouldn't even want to do that.
Right.
No.
But knowing what you need to know for it. So.
Well, as long as you're using them for a good I've talked about this a bunch of times, probably to you guys. I won't mention the names, but investor that buys, if he's not around anymore, used to buy properties that way. And come tax time, people get their tax refund. It was like Christmas for this dude because he had several properties that he would almost prey on these people to say, okay, give me that $5,000 to $8,000 you got from Uncle Sam. You can buy a house. You can buy this home. And do paperwork, knowing darn well that he's setting them up for failure. So 3 months, 6 months, a year later, they can't meet up to the terms of that contract, and they lose all of that. So he takes that $8,000 down payment, all the money they spent, because he used to brag, I sold this same house 14 times.
Yeah.
Like, how in the world did you sell one house 14 times? That makes no sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he's using a contract to just basically screw these people over. So that's definitely not good business, but I'm sure to them, if they weren't able to traditionally buy a home, the dream of ownership is real. Everybody wants to do that. But if you can't traditionally do it, this sounds great. Yeah, and
I feel like if credit problem's an issue, then and you're using a huge down payment to secure a house that you can't really afford, you're probably setting yourself up for failure from the get-go.
Right.
Like, if you've got $50,000, just go buy a house for cash that's not beautiful and it's yours. You own it, and then slowly put money into it. But everybody wants that.
Everybody wants more.
Wow, look at me! Look what I was able to achieve, regardless.
More than what I can afford, and that's. I have known several situations where investors,
myself included,
have really putting it over on people and intentionally. I know a few of them are intentionally doing that. I'm not aware of that currently, but sometimes they just set them up to where it's not a good situation, and maybe this person should. Not everybody should buy a house. Maybe
I don't know. You can't rip people off like that.
I don't know. They did that with a lot of houses. It's scary, but it is a good vehicle, though. I think sometimes there has been instances, where it works out well. Maybe the circumstance warrants it, but.
Or maybe an investor, again, to go back to the investment side, maybe the seller's like, hey, I need to defer some tax, I can't do an immediate sale. I need to defer this.
Right. Yeah.
So that way it doesn't hit me on the tax side. So maybe that kind of works that way too. Yeah. So
yeah, it helps a lot. But we get that a lot of times too. The house for sale, all the calls. Oh, well, they do a land contract. No, they want to actually sell the house. They need to take that money, move on to the next one. So that doesn't work for everybody. All right. So is it a good idea or bad idea, Kari? We need the official rendering.
It depends on the situation.
Good
Seek
answer.
legal counsel.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Bryan hit that then too. Definitely have somebody that knows what they're doing. I mean, every market has an attorney that probably has a formatter or specializes with that. So call title office. I can probably recommend somebody. I love my ChatGPT, but I wouldn't rely on that to be your
I don't know that I would.
saving grace for a legal document either. So, All right, Schube, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Just today talking about pre-listing inspections. I know, I guess some agents recommend them, some don't. So I guess I just wanted to kind of hit on the pros and cons of that and kind of get your guys' opinions on those as well. So I'll kind of do some of the pros first and then move over to the cons. So pros of pre-listings inspections, increased transparency and trust. It shows buyers, and I guess it kind of makes it more open for sellers. Hey, here's exactly what's going on with my house. We're not trying to hide anything. But just, I guess it opens that transparency then. Fewer surprises during escrow. So, even if the buyer does their own home inspection, again, every home inspector is different. So they're probably going to each find their own items of what they, I guess, say is a deficiency and what is not. However, at least I'd say that the majority of those items that they think are going to be counted as a deficiency will already be known and pop up in that report. Right. So I guess the bigger items, there may be some smaller minor things that may pop up that would be separate. But I think again, that transparency, you're going back, you're showing the buyer, hey, here's what we know that's going on with the house, and kind of, just building that trust with that buyer that we're not trying to hide anything.
And you're not talking about Uncle Tom the Toolman Taylor. You hire a legitimate home inspector to come do that. And give a good report.
I believe in the state of Ohio, it does need to be. You can have your uncle do whatever you want. However, if you're going to start asking for repairs and stuff like that, it does need to be from a licensed home inspector. Correct. Opportunity to make repairs up front. So by doing a pre-listing inspection, it does allow the seller, if there are items on that report, it does allow that seller to go back and make some of those repairs that they feel they might need to be made in order to get a sale done.
And they know about it up front then too. It's not going to be a surprise after you negotiated, been through
So you could go back, you could show, obviously once you would do a pre-listing inspection, you're now aware of those deficiencies. Those need to be made aware to a potential purchaser. So if you do make those repairs, you can go back and say, hey, look, here's the pre-listing inspection. However, we have done some repairs, and you can outline exactly, what you guys have done to remedy those things.
Yeah, we found all these things. We fixed A, B, C, and D, but X, Y, and Z are still there, just so you're aware.
Yep.
Yeah.
Most accurate pricing. So I guess a little bit that kind of helps us as far as pricing. If we know that there's a foundation issue or a roof issue, the roof needs to be replaced or something like that. Obviously that can go into, affect our pricing a little bit, and we can kind of, adjust that as needed then as well.
I like the idea of doing that, and then you can go get an actual estimate to get something fixed, because we've seen that. Like in a buyer's eyes, they see the roof and like, oh my God, it's going to be $50,000 to do this roof. Well, no, here's 2 or 3 estimates for $17,000. Still not insignificant, but at least everybody's going into it knowing what we're getting into then.
Yep. Faster negotiations and closing. I guess again, it kind of goes back to buyers are now aware of what exactly is going on with the house, so that may help speed up negotiations as far as repairs, and then obviously which would then I guess roll over to the closing side.
That would help me a lot. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if it's a home inspector that we would recommend anyways, or you already kind of know and trust, and if so and so looked at this property, I personally would feel comfortable probably moving forward without having to do an inspection. I mean, everybody, we want them to be comfortable with what they're buying, but yeah, that would help a lot.
Yeah, which I guess was going to kind of get into my next. So marketing, it's a marketing advantage. So you can now market that home or put it in the agent remarks, hey, we do have an inspection report available. So, before that potential purchaser would make an offer, maybe, hey, here's the inspection report, give them the opportunity to review it. And maybe, again, like what you said, maybe they don't feel they need to do a home inspection now, which, again, we would always recommend, hey, do your own home inspection. But maybe the buyer, elects, hey, we feel comfortable with this. We don't need to do our own home inspection.
Yeah, that's our CYA answer. Get a home inspection. We don't care. You have to get a home inspection, but sometimes in a negotiation it doesn't work out either then too if you're in a competitive home.
Yep. So I guess, yes, it obviously would help, any potential purchaser. Kind of moving on to the cons now. So obviously to do that pre-listing inspection, there's usually an upfront cost to the seller, anywhere I'd say from $300 to probably $600. It just depends. I know a lot of them depend on the square footage of the home, the size of the home, and then it also depends on what all inspections you're doing. Then I would say most pre-listing inspections I've seen are just a general home inspection, but maybe a seller's got other concerns, so they're going to have, maybe the pest inspected or something like that as well.
Which there's still a cost to that. I've had sellers ask that. Well, can't you just have one of your home inspectors look at it and just give me a quick report? Like, well, no, that's still, so a roofer's not going to come over and just do a little bit of your roof for free, no, that's their job. They're providing a service, so.
Disclosure obligations. So as I stated before, once those issues are discovered by the sellers, they are legally obligated to disclose those to potential purchasers. I guess, and it kind of goes, some of these are kind of what we have already, went back on. So it doesn't replace a buyer's inspection. So as we just said, a buyer may still elect to do their own. We usually recommend that a buyer still do their own,
sure.
just because, again, that previous home inspector was hired by the seller, working for the seller. You probably want to do your own home inspection from your own agent or your own home inspector that you hired that's working for you. And then risk of over repairing. So sellers might spend money on issues that they think are a concern, but maybe another buyer doesn't think is a concern.
Right.
So they're sticking a bunch more money into their home that maybe a buyer wasn't initially going to ask for then. So
it doesn't need to be perfect.
Yeah, if you have one of those buyers that's been in construction their whole lives or something like that, and they can fix a lot of things themselves, that they're not worried about it, and like this is their house and it might be competitive, so they're going to say, nope, we're good, we saw the report, I can fix that, I can fix that, and then that way the seller's not trying to worry about this, that, and the other for no reason.
Yep. And then I know... Go ahead.
I was to say, or you get somebody who's not been in construction, so they do all the little stuff and leave the big stuff untouched.
Right.
And they're like, but I put $1,200 and 2 weeks of my life into this. And it's like, but all you did was change out light covers and paint.
Yeah, the roof still needs replaced. Or
the furnace isn't working.
Open junction boxes, stuff like that.
And then I know one of the big items, I think this was a couple years ago, or maybe it was sooner than that, but even though, so a pre-listing inspection, again, as I just stated, is done for the seller. So if a buyer, that seller says, hey, here's this pre-listing inspection, I know a lot of home inspectors, if that buyer purchases that home and they discover a different problem that was not originally noted in that report previously, that report was done for the seller. It was not done for you. Right. So I know a lot of them say they can't take legal recourse over that home inspection company because the seller's name was on that report and not that new buyer.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't stop people from asking things or blowing deals up over things then too at the end of the day, but it's I see the one here. Not all properties need one. So agents say that not every home needs a pre-listing inspection. So a newer home, Chris, you and I were just talking, that one guy that has the video, like literally he's probably making more money doing videos than he is home inspections now, but does nothing but inspects new homes and finds hundreds of things wrong with homes all the time. So the brand new construction.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably the same guy. I was sitting on TikTok last night looking and it was the same guy. And he's like, don't do that, So he's just pointing out new home construction.
I love how he's like, I can't name the builder, but and then there's the flag in the background that says who the builder is. Like, can't see who it is, but I'm doing a home inspection on a new home.
Funny.
So,
which kind of is a good point. So not even existing homes need home inspections. New home constructions. Mm-hmm. I'd say a lot. There are probably more problems with new home builders now than existing homes a lot of
whether
times.
It's like detrimental, like the furnace doesn't work like an older home, maybe not so much, but if you're paying for a new home, paying a premium for a new home, it should be nice, it should be well put together.
Yeah, because I see a lot of them are like with framing and stuff, the boards aren't, touching or anything like that. And so again, even if I guess you're building a new home and not buying an existing home, you can still get, home inspections throughout that process.
So end of the day, get a home inspection, I guess, right? Even if they're providing you with a report. Yep. But I would be, this is my agent hat, this is my personal buying hat. If I had an inspection again from someone I trusted, I'd be fine with it.
I would too.
I really would.
Yeah, I mean, if it's an inspection report from an inspector that we, typically use quite a bit, right? That's one of those like, are they going to find anything really different since they were just there?
This is the person I would hire myself if I'm buying a home, and if that's done there, you should feel comfortable with that. But again, you're buying a used home, even a new home, they're going to have issues. There's going to be something wrong with every home. So, all right, cool. All right, Sierra, visionaries, tech trailblazers honored.
Tech trailblazers.
Yeah, who's our number 3?
Right there.
Do we need a drum roll? No. Yeah.
So this is week 3 of 3 on the Innovators of the Year. This week we have Miss Katherine Aronson and Kevin AI.
Why is it, okay, I got to know. What's
Yeah.
the Kevin AI? Are you going to explain it? Because that was
Yeah.
killing me. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm like, why Kevin AI? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know why it got its name. I couldn't find that, but
Okay.
she developed Kevin AI. She was a co-founder. I couldn't find specific details on who else founded it, but her name came up most often when I was researching. So, yes, Kevin AI is a lead innovation through AI. It allows a streamlined lead source that provides information like how long has someone lived in their home, signs they may want to sell, current market conditions, all right there at your fingertips. And I know we've had a couple, not necessarily with artificial intelligence, but a couple programs that like say they can pull this information, whether it's actually accurate or not. We've kind of put that to the test every now and then, but supposedly this can provide you all of that just through their certain AI intelligence there. And so this was a quote from her, instead of just piling up more leads, we're helping agents focus on quality. It's all about turning strangers into real relationships, which is the name of the game at the end of the day. You're trying to turn that little phone number, email, or whatever of a random person into a sale, hopefully, or at least a future working relationship or something like that. So it provides hyper-personalized automated communication that turns leads into human relationships. So essentially it kind of, what we have that are our normal like lead campaigns and drip campaigns, stuff like that, it sounds like this is kind of on steroids.
Yeah, sounds kind of next level.
Yeah, it gets personalized to whatever their situation is or their area, whatever that might look like, to help streamline that into an actual working lead then. And so her basis of this was to allow agents to do what they do best and focus on the human side of business, while Kevin AI assists in bridging those online leads into more human relationships in way of making communicating and keeping up with the lead easier, but also picking, quality over quantity more so.
Sure.
Of you can hopefully, it sounds like kind of detects which might be more of a viable lead as compared to just the random email from someone that
I saw
wanted
a cute
to
picture.
the
button,
people that wanted to see the photos and stuff like that. So pretty interesting.
I don't know if I found the right site or not, but it sure looks like it's askkevin.ai. It's kind of talked about the text, email, chat, coming up with better leads, better. And I guess from a what a consumer is not necessarily for them, but us as agents, if we can find, hey, I'm looking for a property, I'm looking for a neighborhood, maybe this could help us find, drill down into things like that. I know we talked about that. We have different programs that kind of help with stuff like that, but I want to say our corporate, they had something, they bought some program that did that. It wasn't cheap, but it seemed like it worked for, big data. I think it all goes to big data, what I mean? Big brother. They watch everything you do. You start talking about it. Your phone's listening to you. Oh, we should sell our house, Kari. Okay, well, there you are. Bam, you show up as a lead then probably. So
right.
And we'll include our affiliate link. No, just kidding. We don't have that, but we should do that.
Yeah, we do need to start doing that.
No kidding. So it's Bryan. You can have it for only $500 a month. Premium service.
Month?
Yeah. Well, they have a $100 one and a $500 one. It looks like,
or the custom one.
If you could get leads that would pay for that, it would be worth
for sure.
it.
Right.
You'd really have to get some good quality leads to make that make sense.
At the end of the day, kind of what you're talking about here, then does it help forge that relationship for an agent then too? Because a lot of times someone might start online or talking about it and you become a lead, but then do they just go to whoever they know then too? Like I know we're all looking for the easy button in any sales business, especially real estate. How do I get listings? How do I get buyers? How do I whatever? I think if there were something that just were a silver bullet that worked, it'd be awesome. Maybe this does work like that.
That's it. Everybody's worried like AI will replace agents, but really it's just going to make us like have superpowers because we'll have the ability to use these tools to be more efficient at what we do. If you're working hard.
I 1,000% believe that. I think this will eliminate a lot of jobs, stuff like this, especially in our industry too. But I think it'll make us agents that are good and plugged in and actually working, just make us more efficient or make it better then too, and make a better experience for the client. All right. So who's going to try this one?
Sounds like you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I need to stop going to Circle K so much.
No kidding.
Save my money.
Save the money from there
and put that into this lead generation.
Well, that's cool, Sierra. So that was, do they pick 3 every year? Do you know? Or is
I think it's yearly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, Bryan, you made the 30 under 30. You'll have to make the 3 on this then. You'll have to come up with some $1 billion tech idea.
Cap on.
Yes.
Start 3D printing something.
We know you love all the tech, so. All right, cool. Well, I was going to get into real quick, and we're already kind of long here then too. So we've talked about iBuyer things before, and some of the podcast guys I listen to, they just love dogging on this stuff. They had iBuyer, which if you're not familiar with what an iBuyer is, or like a Zillow, Redfin, they all have different things like that to where if I'm a home seller, do I want to go through all the process? Sierra's going to come through my house and look at all my stuff and tell me how ugly my wallpaper is, and I got to mow the lawn and do all the things and have 40,000 strangers in my home and home inspections and pay you expensive agents all this money to sell my home. Do I want to go through that? Or am I going to take this deal with this iBuyer, iOffer, internet deal to where they're going to offer you a dollar amount, usually less than full price, but it's going to make it so much easier. Well, all these companies, they're putting us out of business. They're doing that. Well, come today, I had a ChatGPT look to see, okay, who's even still around anymore? Because these were all over the place. So there was OpenDoor. And what got me thinking about this was there was a thing on Inman. So is OpenDoor going to be the new meme stock? So like what GameStop was, OpenDoor has just been getting murdered. Like their revenue's down, they're hemorrhaging money, but someone's doing kind of a short squeeze on them. So are they going to turn OpenDoor stock into the next meme stock? So just kind of articles strictly about that, because their numbers are so bad. So that got me thinking about that. So who else is struggling, or who even isn't around anymore? So OpenDoor is still active but struggling. They posted almost a $400 million loss in 2024, $3 billion in cumulative losses, almost $4 billion. So not a company I'd probably be excited to invest in necessarily. But Zillow, again, love Zillow, hate Zillow, doesn't matter. They're there. They're the big dog in the room. The 800-pound gorilla. They had their Zillow offers. That is no longer active anymore. So that was another thing.
I wonder why.
Yeah, yes. To where that's not even a thing anymore. Redfin, they shut theirs down in 2022. That was kind of how Redfin even, I think, started, was for the most part. They were going to be an iBuyer program. They turned into kind of a mini Zillow. They have their own agents and things like that. That was a big push for them. So that's not even a thing. OfferPad, I really thought they were out of business. It's still active but weak. That was another one that did, they came in with big numbers. They were spending tons of money. It's kind of like, I'll just dog on Compass again, I guess. That's where Compass, big company, comes out of nowhere. They were getting all this IPO money, they're doing all this investment capital. So OfferPad is the same way. They were getting like tens of millions or billions of dollars in capital investment. So it's like they had money to burn. It kind of came out of nowhere. Knock is no longer doing iBuying. They're doing more like a home swap thing, or almost like a bridge loan kind of set up then too, because someone can sell their home, move into another one. Trying to think, what was the other one? Orchard, I don't even know what that used to be. Perch is another one that is no longer around. So why the margins are too thin? Like we all know then too, like how many people we have looking for a flip right now? I mean, tons of people looking for an investment or some type of flip or whatever. It's hard to find a good deal. And every time that we've talked to a seller about this, you could sell your home, we could offer that. We have people that buy that stuff. They're going to give you less. So easy numbers. If we could list it for $100,000, we're going to have our costs involved, but maybe somebody writes you a check tomorrow for $80,000. Does that sound great?
Yeah.
Most of the time is no. Hell no.
If I'd known you were talking about that, I would have brought it in. I just got a letter from like an iBuyer thing the other day offering to buy my land for like $78,000. I'm like, that's not even close.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I don't know. I got
it was like a
two-page.
like a 2-page thing. It was like a letter, and then the next page was like, if you agree to these terms, sign here and mail back. And I'm just like,
God, I don't think I had mine assigned. I think mine was like a long postcard, like a front and back, and it was like that. And it came to the house literally like in the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I'm like, Bobby, look at this.
So somebody wants to buy your house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you have to bring that in.
Yeah.
Bring a pen too, I'll sign it for you.
Yeah.
So you can just sell that right away. But yeah, I just get a kick out of that because it was years. This was going to be the next. I mean, there were several like big CEOs and big money people just like, you agents are done. This is the future.
Yeah.
You're out. What I almost fear is going to, my prediction now is going to come back when rates start dropping, money becomes more available, or money's cheap again. There are going to be more of these companies looking to just suck things up. And when homes start moving, they'll create more opportunities. But Did I have the numbers? I swear I had the numbers here somewhere then too, to where it was, I'll have my computer all screwed up. Yeah, some of the pricing then too. So that was a big thing too. So not only do you get less money usually up front because they're trying to build in some margin, but the costs were still ridiculous too that weren't real clear up front. It was anywhere from like 3 to 11%. It would then cost that seller. So on top of getting your legs cut off and getting a lower number, you know, they're mad at like what we're charging, but they were coming swinging that or more at people. So between repair costs, things like that would kind of go on with that. So to me, it's no wonder that it's not really a viable option anymore for.
Yeah, the whole thing just sounds so sketchy in general too.
But it was a big thing. A lot of people seem to be doing it. I guess in big markets, if you really knew, it never seemed to make sense in like our tiny market. You know, I don't think there's enough data there for them to look and say, okay, I can buy this for 100 and sell it for 150. Right. You know, if you're in the Columbus market, neighborhood with 700 identical homes, and there's been 30 of them that sold in the last 3 months, it's pretty easy to see. This should sell for 350. We can buy it for 3.25, make 25 grand real quick, I guess. But I don't know. So most of them are out of business or barely holding on or hemorrhaging money, becoming the latest meme stock. So we'll have to look at that. I'll have to pull up OpenDoor stock and see if we can. I'm sure there's where was that big on GameStop? Like when they were posting all that stuff, people were making a bunch of money.
On Wall Street bets.
Beats or bets or whatever it was. Yeah, so there you got it, Chris. So it'll probably be the same thing. So Chris will have to look for that OpenDoor, see what the next squeeze is for that. So, all right. So I'm not selling my house to an iBuyer. Bryan might. He's considering it apparently.
Just the land though.
Yeah, just the land. You can keep the house then from there.
Sierra and I will go halfsies at $75,000.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, that's all I got. You guys got anything else? Good?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I feel good about that one. We'll see you back soon here. Like, subscribe, do all those fun things. We will see you next time, folks.